Okay, it says I'm live. So, we are talking today about clearing mom guilt because mom guilt is way too normal. And I'm going to, I think, pull it up in the Facebook group. Okay, it does actually show that I'm live. And if you, if you want to join me, I posted links in the group for how to join me. And then, where you can join me on camera so we can have conversation. Or hang on. Okay, I can find the live. I'm going to tag. Found it on my phone. I can't find it on my computer. It's ridiculous. Okay. All right, so I guess there's the link on there. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for the hair. I'm glad you like it. We find. I can't find the live on my computer, so then I can't. I have to send the link to myself and then. Bear with me. I message things to myself from my phone all the time. To get things from my phone to the computer, I message myself. Okay, so now the link is there if you want to join me. And you can be like logged into the StreamYard, I think, and not be on the screen. So you wouldn't have to be like on the screen the whole time. I would be able to just put you on to have conversation. So I'm trying to get that set up. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so yay, it's working. I can see names and I can see comments and I can see that Jennifer is there, so I can add her later. Cool, it's working. That's nice. Okay, so clearing mom guilt is what we're talking about today. And it seems like in our culture, we've just been taught that we should feel guilty and feel like we're failing as moms, and that's just wrong. And so today we're going to talk more about how to break free from that. Hi, Sophia. So if you're watching the replay and you don't know me, I'm McCove. I am a mother of 4, and half of them are getting married this summer, which is kind of crazy. The oldest is 21. Then the 20-year-old is getting married in August, and the 19-year-old is getting married in June. And then I have the little 4-year-old that has popped in a couple of our videos. I don't think she'll be in today because Dad's home and she's working with Dad. And before we dive in for today, you can hear my head is still stuffy, but it's not near as bad as yesterday. And so I'm going to pray and then we'll get started. Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity to minister. And I just pray that you would speak clearly through me, that the words would make sense and find the right place to land for each woman that is listening. I just ask that you give them a safe space to listen and process and be curious. And yeah, just bless every woman that's watching live and that watches this replay, that you are with them and you can minister to them because you are not bound by time and space. Thank you for your grace. Amen. Okay, so we talked on Tuesday and kind of looking at our to-do list and saw how emotions are so connected to everything, maybe even more than we realize. Sophia, yeah, you can join me on StreamYard if like when we go through the exercise, if you want to be able to discuss with me, then yeah, definitely join on StreamYard. And otherwise, if you just want to watch, that's totally fine too. So we saw how emotions are just a part of everything. And then yesterday got into a little bit more how if we're not acknowledging whether it's our daily emotions or our older emotions, that they come into the present anyway and can cause problems in other situations. And looking at those messages that our emotions have for us. And today we're going to go deeper into what do we do with those messages, and kind of had some questions about that. And so one of the questions that Lisa asked was defining holding space, because I used that term and I didn't define it. So what I mean by holding space is just being there for someone. And so like today I'm going to encourage you to hold space for yourself. And that means kind of what we've been doing. You're not judging. You're not trying to fix anything. You're not trying to fix anything like by fixing the situation. You're also not trying to make them feel better. You're simply being there to listen, to validate. Like, that's hard. And that seems so empty when I say it, but it's exactly what I need when I hear it. Like, just somebody acknowledging, yeah, that's hard. That stinks. So it's just that I'm making a space here for the focus to be on the other person, or in this case, going to go ahead and hold space for ourselves today to just feel whatever you're feeling. And there's no judgment for that. And there's no like, hurry up and get through this feeling, figure out what we're going to do. It's just the space to feel what you're feeling. And so Jennifer had asked a question about like giving your kids space to feel what they're feeling. And then, the feelings should move on, but if they don't seem to be, then what? So it could be a couple of things. One is to be curious and see if there's something else there. Like last night when I was putting Tegan to bed, she was looking kind of sad, and I'm like, what's going on? And she told me she felt like a piece of her heart was missing, and lots of pieces of her heart, actually. And I'm like, oh, that's really hard. Can you tell me about that? Why do you feel like there's a piece of your heart missing? And so it was because she's been wanting to get together with friends and it hasn't worked out. And so we talked through that. But like, be curious and see, is there something else there? Like, they're expressing this, but maybe there's something else that they're holding on to because they haven't expressed it. And the other thing is, I know for me, I modeled holding on to discouragement and hopelessness and being a victim and all of that stuff. So they didn't know how to do it any different because that's what they watched me do. And so walking them through that process of, is there something here that you actually still need to deal with, or do you want to let this go? If you're not wanting to let it go, why? Um, and working through kind of what we're working through today would probably be helpful to help them work through, like, do you really want to hold on to this? Do you need to hold on to it for some reason? If you do, then let's deal with that. And if you don't, then let's let it go, because we can do that. So part of it's just giving them the tools. And then part of it is, it might be a habit. Like, well, I don't know what else to do with it. That's what I've always done with it. I've just hung on to it. So, and then Jennifer had another question about if it's my fault how my kids turn out and how to not partner with shame and stuff. And we're going to get into that later, because I'm quite sure that will come up in today's exercise. And if not, we'll come back to it, but pretty sure it will. And let's see. Yeah, remind you, I'll be sharing who won the prizes at the end. And then just as we move into the exercise, I'm going to invite you to kind of hold space for yourself right now and take inventory of, how are you feeling right now? Are there any emotions hanging around that for now you want to take and stick in a box, or like it could be set them in a box and set them aside just because they're not to deal with right now, or they could be stuff that's just like, no, I can just give that to Jesus. I don't need that. But just take a quick inventory. Like, how are you feeling right now? Okay. So for me, like, I can take inventory and be like, well, I'm a little bit nervous because doing live and never quite know how that's going to work. My a little frustrated because my head is all stuffy and that doesn't make things fun. But just go, I can just set that aside, because I know this is what, like, it's Holy Spirit that does the work. It's not me. So yeah, Sophia, just as a getting started, we're just putting down, like, what emotions are you feeling right now? And do you need to set those aside to do this exercise? And so for mine, that, yeah, I'm just gonna set that aside, and now I can hold space for the exercise. And so the first part of the exercise is to write down what's your biggest, or the first thing that comes to mind as a source of mom guilt for you. Okay, so my biggest source of mom guilt is not being present. And then, so once you've identified, what's your biggest thing for that brings up mom guilt for you the fastest, the worst, whatever, then what are the emotions that go with that? So the emotions that went with that for me were guilt, shame, frustration, disappointment, discouragement. And then go to what are the messages that those emotions have. Okay, so Jennifer, yeah, I was gonna say on this, and I think for myself, a lot of times, really like the message of this can talk. The messages and the emotions all come together. So it's not really, don't worry about if you can't identify the emotions because the messages are what we need to get to anyway. Um, so yeah, if you just have messages, that's totally fine. And then sometimes like you get a message and like, oh, well, then that makes me feel this and this. And then there's another message and just kind of, so just kind of a brain dump of all of the emotions, all of the thoughts, all of the messages that come up when you think about the mom guilt, or in my case of not being present. Okay, and Brianna says, for me, it's saying my feelings is too much, in too much honesty. Have to think again later and pray about being less harsh. Okay, so the times that you're too harsh brings up the mom guilt. And yeah, knowing the mom that we were raised with versus the mom that we're learning to be. That's a beautiful way to put it because we're all learning. We're learning to be different moms. Okay, and so if Jennifer and Brianna, if you want to be on, I can invite you. Just let me know in the chat if you want me to put you on the screen or not. Okay. There we go. Hi. And I can, you have to unmute yourself, it looks like.
There we go. Can you hear me? I'm sending my kids. They got some tablets. I'm going to put it back. Oh, hi.
Here, get it. I'm not in the center of my screen. Am I in the center of your screen? There we go.
No.
Yay! Okay.
Take them back, guys.
So I'm gonna go through and some of my messages and my processing, and then you can be putting down your own thoughts as you're going through. But so my first emotion was guilt. I feel guilty because I'm not present. And the reality is I am guilty way too often of not being present. And this is where it's really important to know the difference between guilt and shame. Because guilt says, I am guilty, I did something wrong. And shame says, I am something wrong. So, and I have shame on my list too. So guilt is like, yes, I'm guilty. I'm not present. I spend too much time on the computer or absorbed in some other project instead of being present when I want to be present. So I'm guilty. Since I'm guilty, then I can do something about that. I can figure out what I need to change. I can confess. I can be forgiven because it's something I did. Now, the shame is telling me I'm a failure, that I'm a terrible mom, that I'm never going to get it right. Like it's all these attacks on me and who I am instead of this is something I did and I can change it. So it's not bad to feel guilty. Jesus died so we could be forgiven because we were guilty, because we are guilty. But we can be forgiven and we can change. But the shame is what attaches the condemnation and attacks our identity. And that's what is not true and what we need to get rid of. Because failing to be present doesn't mean I'm a failure. It means I need to change. Does that make sense? And so for me, all the other emotions, the shame, the frustration, the disappointment, the discouragement, all came back to the same message of the shame. Like they were all just part of that, that I'm a failure. I should be doing better. I could be doing better. So how are you guys doing on your messages and emotions?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So my message, I wrote it on StreamYard. I thought I'm afraid my kids won't want to be friends as adults, like because I'm not present. So I'll be alone. Like I'll never figure this out. I'll never be able to learn to be present. And so I didn't recognize that was a shame message. And I think I get stuck there because I don't understand I can confess, I can be forgiven, and I can change it. Like that's really been a question of like, well, how does it change? Like I feel like sometimes it's still same issues are in my heart. I still mess up again and again. So I don't know. So maybe it's not confessing quite the right thing. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I also would say, like, those are the things that you're afraid of. You're afraid your kids won't be friends. You're afraid you'll be alone. You're afraid that you can't learn. Is there something else there? Because there's something underneath all of those fears. Is there another message?
I can share.
I mean, I think. Oh, go ahead. I think there is another message. Maybe it's really kind of painful to verbalize it. I think it's like I think all those things are true because maybe part of me doesn't believe like that I am a son or a daughter, like, and so that's why none of it's gonna work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I always tell people you need to get to the tears because that's where the wound is. Because all this other stuff is like, oh yeah, I'm afraid of these things, and it's like, okay, but how afraid are you? You know, whatever. Like it's kind of like if somebody tells you about something horrible that happened to them with no emotion. It's kind of like, something's not quite right there. So like, while all of these things are true, working on them isn't working because they're not actually the root. The root is down there where the emotion is, where the tears are. So for moving forward, that not really believing you're good enough to be a daughter or however you would verbalize it, that's what you're going to want to focus on for the rest of the exercise.
Okay.
Okay. How about for you, Brianna?
So for me, again, I constantly feel the Lord encouraging me. And I'm grateful for that because I think, I didn't have a mother that was my mom. I was more like her mother growing up. So I really do feel like I'm the only one in God on this. And what I feel sometimes where I get stuck with him in prayer the most, I guess, I talked to him the most about it, is, I don't know what emotion it is, but I just realize, like, I can still be like a weapon, and I don't mean to be, and it's not like I'm intending to be. It's like he shows me my character that he is trying to break off of me and molding into a more loving person through my daughters the most. Like I don't realize how cold I can sound, or because they'll mimic it right back. I need space, mommy. I want to be alone. They're saying all the things I'm saying that I feel totally comfortable with. But when I hear it from them, it's like, but you're 4, like you're 5. Like, and you know what? Yesterday, it was right after your live. I just wanted to say really quickly, it was such a powerful moment because my 4-year-old, she was more independent than my 5. Like she's potty trained and everything. She doesn't really ask for my help, but lately she's always wanting me to stand by the door, go with her to the bathroom. And me and her father had issues like separating again. So I'm just trying to find out what the root is. Like, why are you afraid to go without me? I want, I'm trying to ignore going with her and having her go so I can see like what the real issue is. But finally she's like, no, she's begging me, please just stand by the door. And then finally I said, no, you can do this. And then she's like, Mommy, I need you. Like, it's such a cracked voice. And I asked her to repeat herself because I almost didn't understand it. And she said, Mommy, I need you. And it's like, it was just like right then, like, wow, my 4-year-old is so in tune with her emotions that like there's no other reason. She just said she needed me. And so I got up right away. I honored that. I just felt God so much because I'm like, she can tell me that that's the real reason. I mean, I don't know what else it is, but she was able to communicate that that was for me. And here I am with you in my life. And I feel like I'm just learning this myself at 28. So I don't know, like when I feel bad about where I'm at with my speech or communication with my emotional development, all that with my kids, it's like, but what they're giving me back is something I'm still learning right now. So it's kind of hard to feel like I'm failing or something because they're already more advanced than me emotionally.
That's good. Yeah. They can do well. They learn quick. Okay, so the next part of the exercise is if you've identified, whatever comes out of that mom guilt. So for me, it was that I'm a failure, or for Jennifer, that questioning whether really a daughter. Just any spot that's bringing up that pain for you, and ask the Lord to show you when was the first time that you felt that way. And just trust the first thing that comes to mind, even if you don't necessarily feel like it makes sense, or if you're new to asking the Lord and expecting an answer, just trust the first memory that comes to mind. And for me, when I put that I'm a failure, I was like, I can't remember not feeling that way.
So yeah, for me yesterday, that was something I wrote down too. That was the whole point. I felt the Lord showing me in that moment. Like I literally told God, I don't even remember. I can't remember a time where I felt that way about my mom, where I literally cried and told her that I needed her. So that's what I'm writing again here.
Safe space. Yeah, and as he brings up a memory, just again, like hold space for your younger self that experienced that, and acknowledge like that was really hard for, kind of what came up for me is like, okay, if I can't remember ever not feeling that way, like I don't think I was planned. And so I think even though I don't think it was like they didn't want me, there was still that sense of like, we weren't ready for you. And so still that sense of kind of being a burden and whatever, even though they always, did their best to love me and take care of me, there was still that. And when things happen, we don't understand them as children, obviously not as infants, like cognitively we don't understand, but our spirit is there, and our spirit experiences things. And then of course the enemy is right there offering us, like God is there offering us a gift, but the enemy is also there offering something as a solution to whatever we're experiencing. And I don't know how often we choose the enemy's gift over God's gift, but in those times that we do, those are those places that just keep hurting over the years, because there's still that spot where the enemy told us, for me, that I wasn't really wanted, like I was rejected right from the beginning. And so he brings rejection back again and again and again. So hopefully that makes sense. And but part of the healing to be able, for you, Brianna, to be able for yourself to be like, yeah, that really is awful to be a little girl and not have a mom be a safe place for you. That's really hard. And just acknowledge and validate that for yourself. And then the next part of the process is to ask if there's anyone that you need to forgive for teaching you that you were a failure or that you're rejectable or, whatever that message was. And again, just trust whatever comes to mind. If he doesn't bring anybody to mind, that's fine. Maybe you've already forgiven. If he brings somebody to mind that you weren't expecting, you go ahead and forgive them too. Sophia says, I think we make those agreements when we're feeling helpless and sorrow. We do. Because the enemy is right there offering them to us, and it seems like a good solution. And especially as children, we don't recognize that it's him that's offering it. It just seems like what's going to fix it. And so take that. And so we can forgive whoever we need to forgive for teaching us that. And then we also can repent of belief, confess to the Lord, I was believing this thing that's not true, believing I'm a failure. And that's not true. I'm the righteousness of Christ. I'm your daughter. So I confess coming into agreement with this lie, and then and ask for his forgiveness. So I'll give you a minute to do that for yourself. Forgive anybody you need to forgive. Confess anything you feel like you need to confess. And once you've forgiven and confessed, then you can ask the Lord what his perspective is and what is the truth. And again, trust what comes up. If it's clearly not scriptural or something, we'll deal with that. But we're asking the Lord to minister to us and believing that he will do that. So like what he said for me was, I chose when and where you were born. I've never been disappointed, because in my feeling like a failure, really the kind of lie for me there is that I'm a disappointment. And so he said, I've never been disappointed and I will never be disappointed. Sophia said, God just showed me how powerful this would be to do with my sons. Yeah, it's very powerful to do with anybody, because Holy Spirit shows up. And when he comes, because we can try and change our mind all we want, that I know I should be more present, so I'm going to be more present. But if we don't go to the root of why we're not present, then we just work really hard for not very many results. But if we can go down to the root of oh, I don't feel worthy myself, I don't feel like I'm ever going to get this right. And at that place of brokenness, be able to hear the Lord's truth of no, you're not a disappointment. I know who you are. I know who you made me to be. It just shifts things so much more than all of our trying to do behavior modification or whatever. And then I'm going to give, not sure if Jennifer turned off her camera because she's working or because she had to go deal with kids or something. But let's go ahead and give you another minute to, if there's any of that processing you still need to do before we do the last part of the exercise. Okay, take your time, Jennifer. She says she's still working it out, but that's fine. It's hard to know how much space to give, and I guess was something I thought about saying too, that like I've been practicing this for a long time, so don't feel like you're not getting it fast enough or you should be able to go through this easier or anything like that. Like, it's hard in a group setting. It's with everything, like you don't want to go so slow that you lose the fast people, and you don't want to go so fast that you lose the people that need more time. And yeah, I've been practicing this for years. So having these conversations with the Lord is something I do all the time. And so no comparison if things aren't happening in the same framework for you. Sophia's mom used to say, "I didn't teach you right. I thought I broke those chains." That's interesting. And sometimes I think we think we break chains, but maybe we didn't do it all the way. Or like for my kids, like there's a lot of chains that I broke when they were in like later elementary and like teen years, but they'd already had, 10, 12 years, whatever it was, of living with me without those chains broken. So that's plenty of time, like our character and our core beliefs, and so much of that is formed by, I don't know, they say like age 5 or age 7 or whatever. So like everything I broke after that is kind of already sewn into them. And then it's a whole different process because I'm breaking in me, but it also has to be broken in them. And if they don't choose to do that, or if they aren't aware they need to do that, or that kind of thing, like, the enemy will use everything he can to keep us in chains. And so, but that's interesting that she recognized that.
I wrote something. I don't know if I was supposed to share it or not.
Sure.
So the person to forgive is actually myself. I've forgiven my mom endless years already. It's just a natural decision at this point. But recently, say in the last year and a half, I wrote, "Forgive myself for believing I was damaged instead of someone valuable. For believing I was worthless that carried into fearful responses and relationships. This mindset led me to fear love itself. I thought and I viewed love as a negative thing to receive, and not realizing I was living by rejecting love and fearing it. So instead, I was compromising and feeling comfortable with abuse. So I always thought and viewed love as a negative thing for me to receive, not giving it. Loving people was always easy for me, but receiving it was a whole other thing. I did not expect the Lord to, since the ending of 2019, He exposed it as I had inner trauma towards receiving love. Like, it was that deep. And I've never even associated myself as someone with trauma. It's just it's just the way that the Lord kept breaking it down to me. But to blame anyone at this point is no. It was literally all how I interpreted my childhood with my relationships. It was totally my decision to feel okay with saying, "No, I don't want love." They're all crazy, but this was huge for me because it's still something that I have to make the decision with God to say yes to love to yes to receiving, And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this would have never happened if the Lord himself didn't tell me, like, I'm living a mediocre life if I don't receive love. And I'm
Yeah.
accepting abuse instead.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we think of trauma as certain really horrible things. And there's actually a whole spectrum of trauma. And there's, I don't know, there's type A and type B. And I think type A is the bad things that happen to you. So those can, physical abuse, rapes, physical bad things that happen to you is one kind of trauma. But then the type B trauma is not receiving the good things that you should have received, which is where emotional neglect comes in and things like that that are traumatic, but we don't see it as traumatic in our culture and we downplay it and it's not that bad and we minimize, and that just makes it more traumatic. But so Sophia said, I believe she thought she broke the chains of abuse from my dad, but yes, saw me struggle with abuse. Yeah, so there could have been things that she was still modeling that came through to you, and it also could just be that the enemy was like, I know this pattern works in this family, so I'm going to continue to try it again. And learning to receive love is huge. Something I'm still working on. It's huge. Okay, so the next step, and Jennifer, if you need to like leave it here and come back to the replay or whatever, that's totally fine too. I always like to end with the exchange. And so Isaiah, I didn't look it up, but Isaiah 61 says that he gives us beauty for ashes, joy for mourning. And I know it says something else, which I'm not remembering at the moment. But so like I always end with the exchange. And so take whatever from this exercise, for me was, I say, I give you my shame and my feelings of being a disappointment. And the picture that came to mind was just like crumpled up pieces of paper that should just be thrown in the garbage. But I'm like, I'm taking that, I'm giving it to you. So what do you have for me in exchange? And so just listen or be open to whatever he shows you as what does he have in exchange for you for what you're giving him today. And so for me, he said acceptance, approval, and then gave me a necklace with a single pearl on it. And then, so once you've gone through and you've felt your emotions and you've figured out where they're coming from and why they're so stuck, like if it's been something that's been normal to you for most of your life, then like, yeah, it feels pretty stuck. Then you can come back to, so like, all of this stuff I was dealing with was from the shame and the disappointment and the discouragement, but I still have that guilt. So then once I've dealt with all of the stuff that's not true and gotten that out of the way, now coming from the place of I'm accepted by the Lord and he approves of me and he's not disappointed in me. Now what do I do about the guilt about not being present? Because reality is I could be doing better. And I actually want to be doing better, which is a way more helpful place instead of just, well, I could be doing better. I should be doing better. No, I actually want to be doing better. So then what do I need? And so then just like once all of the emotion is out of the way, then we're in a place to logically to come at it and go like, okay, what do I need to change this situation? And so for me, like I need to ask for help. I need realistic expectations. I can't be present with her 24/7, but like how much being present is healthy and needed for a 4-year-old. And then the other thing is because I've always expected to be a disappointment. That's what I look for, is the places where I'm being a disappointment to myself or to God or to someone else. So instead, I need to start looking for my successes. What am I doing right? What am I doing well? And focus on that instead of focusing on all the places that I feel like I'm failing and I'm disappointing. Okay. Any questions or comments? That's all I have for today. I feel like that was a lot.
I got such a beautiful image when you were saying that. I wrote down, I saw that he was taking my old diaries. It totally made me try not to cry. I just saw myself handing him like all my diaries that I would make, and kind of a more isolated time. And I just feel him now saying that he's just going to use my voice for him. As of right now, I'm taking children's literature and I'm taking an art class. And yesterday, my teacher told me, like, just see my drawings for the Lord that I made. He said, you need to make children's books. Are you planning on making children's books? And then he told me, you need to finish the visions that you were given. And he's an atheist teacher.
That's awesome.
And then I just wrote here, just keep allowing myself to learn to be vulnerable and keep allowing him to soften my heart.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything. I still need a little bit more time to process. So we'll do that later.
Yeah, we definitely can message me or whatever if you need help processing through stuff too. Sophia says it was deep and so needed. And I really felt like there's just what the Lord wanted me to do this week, is to serve and to show you it works. To show you that he can, with the right tools and the right strategies and whatever, like with him, you can get to, why is this stuck? Why does this hurt so much? Why do these things keep triggering me? Like, this is the process to go through to figure that out, to be able to get rid of the mom guilt and not just constantly be putting yourself under all of that condemnation and everything. So, yeah, so I'm excited. I knew it would be kind of in-depth and kind of challenging on a Facebook Live, but I still felt like that's what we're supposed to do. So your homework for today is to share that main message, or if you're not comfortable with that, you can just go through the exercise and come back on the homework thing and put, I did it. Because it's a lot. And then, yeah, tomorrow I'll be going through and actually doing a bit more teaching tomorrow. I probably will have a creative exercise in there too, just because I think that's way more fun. But kind of going back and looking at, okay, here's what we did for these 3 days. What did we do? And kind of break it down that way tomorrow. And see, Sophia, you won the decluttering session for yesterday. So congratulations. And then once we get off, I will go through and see who all made it live. And I'm giving away one of my friend Karen's books today on the Entering His Presence with Thanksgiving, and then one of my Missed Majesty books too. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you in the group again tomorrow. Bye, guys.